Okay, so today's episode, we've got again one of my favorite guitar players, and this is a guy who I grew up like seeing him on some of the biggest stages in the city. Like when I was growing up, this guy was like in the biggest band in the country at the time. So it's definitely like a huge honor for me to be speaking to him. And his name is Mahesh Tinaikar. He's been part of a band called Indus Creed for a very long time. He'll tell us exactly how long. And he's also been part of, I think, an acoustic project called Whirling Kalapas and a few other things that, he's had production credits and so on and so forth that he'll tell us about. So please welcome Mr. Mahesh Tinaikar.
Hey Warren,
Hey Mahesh.
nice to be here, man.
Thank you for
Thanks for inviting
thank you
me.
for being here today. So we're going to get right into it without any further ado. So this is a question I always ask. At the time you started getting into music or playing guitar, what was your favorite band at the time?
Uh, from what I remember, my favorite band actually at that point was this. I'm talking about really early 70s,
Mm-hmm.
72, 73, when I was about 8, 9 years old. I was listening to Ventures,
Okay.
Ventures and Shadows,
Wow.
because my elder brother
Mm-hmm.
on that time we used to have the vinyl player. My brother used to borrow these albums from a friend of his who was a big Ventures fan.
Okay.
So he used to get all these Ventures and Shadows albums, like all instrumental stuff. This was not with Cliff Richard Shadows, as when they were doing the instrumental Hank Marvin
Right.
instrumental music.
Well, Apache and
So
FBI and
that's
all that.
yeah, correct, yeah. And so Ventures and Shadows were my earliest influences. I think that's where the whole seed of wanting to play guitar was for
Mm-hmm.
me was I just love the sound of and before that I didn't even know that you could play lead guitar.
Right.
For me, it was just like watching in Hindi movies, guys playing the acoustic rhythm guitars thing, and I didn't know you could play actually lead guitar until I heard the Ventures. For
Right.
me, that was a revelation.
So,
So for me,
be-
that was the earliest.
so before that point, you were listening to mainly Indian music, or you had a mix of
I
both?
wasn't listening. I was listening kind of passively because
Uh-huh.
my mom used to listen to a lot
Yeah.
of the Indian music,
Mm-hmm.
classical music, and Indian film music on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was I used to listen to it because she used to play that music all the time on the radio. So,
Okay, awesome. So you
yeah.
you did get a fair dose of that because I never had
Oh
that when I
yeah, and
was
I still like that music. I
yeah,
still love the
it's
old
awesome.
'70s, Indian film music. Some
Yeah,
of them is classic. Yeah, I
yeah.
can still
There's some
listen to.
great melodies in some of those
Yeah,
tunes.
beautiful melodies.
Um, I mean, I mainly got into his rhythmic sound of it. I just love Indian percussion.
Right. Yeah.
Um, okay, so then from the ventures, you started learning all that stuff on the guitar, or like what was the
No,
first
no,
stuff you
no, no, no,
started
no. I
learning?
didn't actually. I didn't hold a guitar till I was about 18 or 19 years
Oh,
old.
really? Okay, okay.
Yeah, because for me, it was I just love. I wanted to play the guitar. I always wanted to play the guitar. I didn't know anyone who had a guitar.
Okay.
I didn't know where I could get a guitar from, and I wasn't too good in my studies. I was always like, for me, I was always thinking in class and thinking, sitting in class and thinking about music all the time.
Right.
Playing guitar, fantasizing playing guitar and being in a band. That was
Yeah.
my main. So my parents at that point never, even though I told them I wanted a guitar, they said no, you got to study first and then we'll see about guitar. So I didn't start playing guitar till much later.
Okay. So
And,
then
but
when you started playing, what was the stuff you first started getting your hands on?
no, no, actually, even before I started playing, around I remember around '76 or so, I heard three albums which changed my perspective completely.
Mm-hmm.
Which the three albums, first was Who's Next,
Mm-hmm.
and then I heard Led Zeppelin 3, and I heard Santana Abraxas. So these three albums I heard in quick succession, and then after that it was completely for me. It was totally, I moved on from Ventures and Beatles and stuff.
Right.
And then when I was actually playing guitar, started to play guitar, I actually I met Jayesh. I remember meeting Jayesh.
Mm-hmm.
This must have been around, I think around 81 or so, 81, 82. And he was already playing guitar,
Okay.
you know.
Jayesh is the other guitar
And
player in
yeah,
Indus Creed,
yeah,
yeah.
Indus Creed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he was already playing, like, he had some Reynolds acoustic guitar. And when I met him, he played me some stuff. And I was like, fuck, man, I know actually guy who's someone who actually plays guitar.
Yeah.
And then it so happened that a friend of mine had an classical guitar,
Okay.
gut string guitar, which I borrowed.
Okay.
And I didn't know that you had to only put nylon strings on it. I went and strung it up with steel strings, Karuna steel strings, and the action went up. Like in 3-4 days, it went up a half an inch. But I thought that's what a guitar is supposed to be. So
Wow.
yeah, so then me and Jay started like he knew chords and stuff, so I learned some chords from him. Then I got myself a book and started learning chords from the book. I remember I think the first song I learned was Bob Dylan's "Blowing in the Wind."
Wow.
Three or four easy chords. So yeah. So that was
How
my
did you meet Jayesh?
initiation. I met Jay because I used to hang out in this HR college in
Okay.
Bombay, and he had some common friends.
Right.
So I met through friends of mine. I met him, and that's how I knew that
Was
he was playing guitar.
was he the first member of Indus Creed who you met?
Yeah, he was the first. He was first member.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I'm
but
sorry. Go on.
y'all all lived somewhere in town, pretty close to each other
Yeah,
at the
very
time?
close. Yeah, very close to. And through Jayesh, I was introduced to Ehsan.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
remember telling me, man, this guy lives in the next building. I got Ehsan, man. He can play Hotel California exactly. He can play Here Comes the Sun and all that. I said, fuck, amazing. And then Ehsan, I think when I saw Ehsan's interview, he was telling me about that gig he played in the kitchen in Juhu. Yeah, so one day Jayesh told me, man, he's playing with this band Pegasus in Juhu, and let's go watch him. So we went all the way from town to Juhu to watch him, and I was completely blown. He had this red Stratocaster he was playing, and I think they played Hotel California also. If I remember.
I told Ehsan
And
after the interview, like, you were just talking about Pegasus and now it's in the news.
yeah. Amazing. Yeah, so then I met Ehsan, and then we used to listen to Ehsan practice. He used to have this. I think he had a Roland not Cube, sorry, Roland JC60,
Yeah.
and we could hear him practice. This is the next building, and their rooms were like Jayesh's room and Ehsan's room were like pretty. The balconies were like facing each other,
Right.
so we could hear him practice. So we could stand in the balcony and listen to him practice. And man, fuck, this guy's so fucking good, yeah. And he had an electric guitar and an amp, so he was like God for us.
He was like definitely like the more advanced player.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
his-
yeah,
of
yeah.
his
And
time
he
in the
was
city.
really, I mean, even that, I remember, he had this whole, blues thing and bends and vibrato and all that.
He definitely
had it
knew his
all
stuff.
together.
Even before he went to MI, I think he was pretty
Oh, yeah.
advanced at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so
He was
then
he was my hero at that point. My son was like,
he still is, right? For
yeah,
most of us.
totally. Yeah, always, everywhere.
Okay, so once you met Jayesh, sorry, how long did it take for the first lineup to solidify the first
Actually,
machine?
after meeting Jayesh, we played together. We used to play songs together, workout songs. I used to play rhythm, he used to play lead, and he used to play rhythm. And so we used to do that among ourselves. And then we said, let's form a band. Though I didn't have a guitar other than that nylon string strung up with a steel string guitar. And Jayesh had. We got ourselves with this pickup from Fortidos, I think it was a small little pickup which you put on an acoustic guitar.
I got
And
the
you
same
can
one.
make it electric.
I got the same one from Haribhav Vishwanath. which
Yeah,
was about
something with a
musical-
small plastic bloody
Yeah.
thing he put, and we taped it up with Scotch tape, and we used to plug it into his 2-in-1, this little cassette player.
It's exactly
And
the
that
same
was
thing.
we used to fucking turn it up really loud. Yeah. So then we thought, oh, now we have electric guitar, we got to form a band and all. So then we went to meet Mark Selvin, who had just returned from Sweden at that point. He had gone on this. Yeah, he was in Gothenburg, I think, on some student exchange program for a year, and he had just come back. And we had heard that he got we got with him an electric Les Paul copy, a Suzuki guitar. So, and we knew he was a bass player with toys and all that. So we just landed up at his house. Didn't know who the fuck we were. We rang his doorbell and said, "Hi, this is me, and we want to form a band." He said, "Come in." We sat down. He gave us some rum and stuff. So we got hammered that night, and he had no idea who the fuck we were. But he said, okay, and he had this that Suzuki guitar of his. So I started playing that, and three of us had a first rehearsal. We worked out some songs, and he said, okay, you guys can play, so why not? And he had a day job at that point.
Right.
So he used to come home in the evening from work, and then we used to sit and play for a couple of hours at his place. And then he knew a drummer called Suresh Badrisha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he called him up and he asked him to come in. He had a drum kit and stuff. So that was a band initially.
So two guitar players, one
Yeah.
bass player, and one drummer.
Correct.
And who was singing?
And And that time we had a guy, yeah, so we got this guy called Ian Santa Maria, who again
Right.
who lived pretty close by, and he was also used to be in some bands. I forgot the name. I think Bronze Axe, but this is the
I
old Bronze Axe.
I
He used to be
remember
with,
the name Bronze Axe. They were quite
yeah, yeah.
popular like when I was like really
Yeah,
small.
yeah, I think he used to play with Bronze Axe and stuff. And I think also with Forest a couple of weeks. I'm not sure how much Forest. So yeah, so we asked him to sing. So he came along and sang. And I think back then Jayesh had got himself a proper electric guitar. He got himself a Roadstar, Ibanez Roadstar,
Okay.
which his uncle had got from Bangkok or something like that. So and Mark used to have a Ahuja amp and I think a 12-inch speaker which he had put together, a cabinet, and all three of us used to plug into that damn thing and dance.
Man, that brings back so many
So
memories with the battery powered Ahuja
so
amp,
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So
just one quick question. At the time you all formed, who was the biggest band in Bombay at the time?
Crosswinds, yeah.
Okay.
Crosswinds used to be Crosswinds
That
at
was
that.
Ehsan and
And then
Sanjay
by
Devesh,
then,
right?
Ayasan was playing with Sanjay, and yeah, he had joined Crosswinds. So they were for us. They were like the band we used to look up to.
Now,
We
Ehsan,
used to almost
he
sorry.
mentioned that some of the Rock Machine guys were also in Crosswinds. Was that before Rock Machine
No, no, no,
started
no.
playing?
That was much later. Much later. That
Oh,
happened
okay,
much
okay.
later.
Okay, okay.
So
We
this
can come to
Crosswinds
that.
with Sanjay and Jayu, and they had a drummer called Hiten Mahintura,
Okay.
who played with them that time. But then I think he got into his workspace a lot, so he didn't have time to play. So then they got Mark Menezes to play.
Right.
So this was much before, yeah. So they were a band that we used to look up to, and we almost had them to copy the entire set list. Whatever songs they played, we used to like
You got to start
learn
somewhere,
them.
man. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so now it's the two of you, Mahesh, Jahesh, Mark, and Suresh, and
Suresh,
Ian.
and yeah,
So
Ian.
then who
So
was
that
the
was.
then what?
Then we played our first gig at it was at Rang Bhavan where we had 30 people who came. It was organized by one guy called Kalyan. Not Kalyan. What's this? Kumar Kalantri. So he used to organize small little gigs in these halls in town. I think that Patkar Hall and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
he organized this gig in Rang Bhavan, and there were no ads. He put up some posters in HR college and one handwritten posters in LP and all that. So we got some 30 people for that gig. Yeah, so that was the
Crazy.
first gig we played.
What was the set list like for that first gig?
Yeah, the first gig we played, actually, we played some Wishbone Ash. We played some Leonard Skinner. We played a couple of one or two originals. I think there was a song called East Jogeshwari Blues, which Mark had written, a blues tune,
What
because
is
he used to work in Jogeshwari, the suburb in Bombay, and so he used to commute there and back. So he used to get really fucked about it, and so he wrote a song called East Jogeshwari Blues, and yeah, so it was basically Skinner. I don't know if he used to do Thin Lizzy at that point, some Wishbone Ash, Steve Miller Band, that kind of stuff.
awesome?
So that was a set list then.
So which was
So we
the next lineup change? Who went out and who came in?
then actually the first gig did no Jayesh wasn't playing. I'm sorry, I missed out one guy. At Jayesh didn't play that first gig. We had a guitar player called Aftab Karim, and he played that first gig. That's the only gig he played. With.
Okay.
Because for some I don't know why Jayesh didn't play at that point. I have no idea. I can't remember. But yeah, he played. And then we had to this then we had first we found that Aftab was a good player, but he didn't have a thing for rock. He was more into like other fusion and all that kind of
Okay.
stuff, so which wasn't like fitting in with the band. So then we asked Jayesh to play. So that was, I think, that's when Jayesh joined the band.
And which year was this?
So, must have been 83 or something, 83 or so. Yeah,
I was
sometime in
4.
83. Yeah, it was 1983.
Okay, so then at some point you got a keyboard player, which was Zubin Balapuria when you all
Yeah,
joined.
and how that happened was yeah. So no, before Zubin, Uday joined. So
Okay.
we did this gig at where was it? We had got a show in Goa, and Ian couldn't make it because he had a day job, so he couldn't get leave.
Okay.
And I used to know Uday because he used to also be in KC College, which is right next to HR
HR,
College.
yeah.
So, and once I heard him singing, and he was heard him singing for some talent show or something. So then I asked him to come and, why don't you come and just hang out and see if you want to play with us. So he came and it was like great. So he said, why don't you come for this gig in Goa? So he came for this gig in Goa. So he did that gig with us. And then after that, uh, there was this thing that 8 Bhopal show happened. I think
Oh,
soon
yeah, I
after.
remember
That
that.
Bhopal tragedy, yeah.
85,
So
86.
80, no, I think it was before. Yeah, maybe 80, 84, 85. I can't remember the exact time. Must have been probably 85. So that gig happened, and we had decided because we like Uday fit in with the kind of music we were doing so much better than Ian,
Mm-hmm.
who was always pretty busy with work and he could make it for rehearsal and stuff. So we asked Uday to join permanently.
Right.
And Uday then said, why don't we get a keyboard player? No, actually, he didn't ask us. He knew Zubin, again through some college connection. So he once just told Zubin, come and play, come and hang out with us, get your keyboard and come. So Zubin had this massive bloody 2-deck Yamaha organ. I forget which one it is. It was like massive. It was like, must have weighed about some 600 kgs or something. So he came with his thing and his stand and all that. He set up. He didn't even know that he had called. He just landed up one day. And I thought maybe he's just going to come and play for one rehearsal, just jam or something. But no one asked him to join. And he came and we never left after that. So that's how Zubin joined the band. He just stayed on. No one asked him to join. So yeah. And then after that, we did that 8 Bhopal show, which was actually what broke us.
Your first
So,
big gig.
Yeah, the first big gig. It was a massive, it was televised on by Doordarshan and stuff, and there were whole lot of bands from all which played. So it was a big concert at Brabant Stadium and a huge audience. So they really clicked, and people knew of us, and that's what started Rock Machine rolling actually.
Right. And I believe you all played at the first Independence Rock, which was a huge festival, at least.
Yeah, that also is a story.
You want to tell
Because
us about it?
the first Independence Rock, it was supposed to be organized by one guy, I forget his name. He came and he asked us to play for this gig, which was happening at the same time as Malhar
Uh-huh.
is happening at Xavier's College, which is right next door to Rang Bhavan. So
Uh-huh.
we had this audience already there, and so it happens around the same time as Independence Day, August 15th. So this guy thought that he'll get this, crowd from Malhar and it'd be easier to organize it. So he organized the first Independence Rock with us playing,
Mhm.
and I think next year, because we got this crowd, next year Farhad and Mark decided to organize it.
As in
And
Farhad
call
Wadia.
it India,
Yeah.
Farhad Wadia, and they organized so they took over that Independence Rock thing, and that became their Farhad's thing.
Right.
Independence Rock. So yeah, so we played the first one, and then next year he got a couple of other bands to play and stuff. So it just kept getting bigger. And
It actually ran for like more than 25 years, which was amazing.
possibly, I think 90. When was it? The last was in 2011.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it probably was there the
11 or
last
12.
one. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, they definitely crossed 25. I remember that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
so okay, so after that 8 Bhopal gig where you all got a bit of popularity, then you all
Yeah.
started doing mainly like colleges and festivals and stuff.
college festivals. Yeah, we
Yeah.
started traveling, colleges and IITs, and started calling us for outstation gigs and stuff. So we did a lot of those, and those were different days. Yeah.
And this would
Those
have
were
been
days.
during the late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s.
Yeah, it was like 87, 86, 87,
Yeah.
88, around that time. We
And
played a lot of college festivals and college gigs and
what
stuff.
was the kind of music that was popular at that time?
A lot of Dire Straits and stuff, and we also started adding a lot of our own songs into the set. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we used to do is we used to mix them with the set, and we never used to tell them that this is a song, this is our own song. We used to either like make it up and say this is by like Thin Lizzy or some some other rock band, and they used to love it.
Yeah.
So we used to like con them into listening to our tunes.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be caught dead admitting that they didn't know the song.
Yeah, exactly. And they used to be drunk and stoned. On those days, it was like you could carry your booze into the thing.
Yeah. Especially Bombay, like they didn't really, they weren't very forgiving. If you were
Bombay,
good,
but it
if you were
exactly,
good,
but
they would like you.
It was a
But
different crowd. Those days was a different crowd, and they were a fun crowd actually. Rang Bhavan, how it used to
Yeah,
be like, start the fucking
yeah,
music, start the fucking
that was the
music, and
chant.
we used to abuse they used to abuse them, and it was like, it was
Yeah,
good fun.
the bottles flying
Yeah,
back and forth and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so like you said, you started writing your own stuff, and that eventually led to you recording the first Rock Machine album. So, how did that come
Yeah.
about? Where did you all record, and do you have any memories of those
Okay, now
sessions?
that came about because if I remember right, we were, that time CBS was in India. It was owned by, rather, he had bought a stake, one guy called R.V. Pandit,
Okay.
a businessman who used to own, he owned a media house.
Mm-hmm.
And he got CBS into India. So he was the head of CBS. And now at that point, R.V. Pandit and what's his name? Maureen Wadia, sorry, of Bombay Dine,
Mm-hmm.
they got together and they decided to have this, take this fashion show and rock concert across the country, like 6, 7 cities, have a fashion show and then have a rock band playing after that. So
Okay.
they got this concept together, and we did this 7, 8 shows with this Bombay Guy models and fashion show, and then us, and I think at one point Remo was also there. Remo
Okay.
was part of the rock thing.
Yeah.
So it was this traveling show we did, and that's how. And then we were playing our own songs, and so I think R.V. Pandit that time said, "Why do you want? You should record with CBS, release an album."
Okay.
So that's how the first album came about. So we were doing a lot of our own music, and it was going down really well with the audience. So he saw that,
Yeah.
and so that's how we did the
And
first
the
album.
the big song I think was Rock and Roll Renegade was from that album.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
the
the
album
first
was
album.
called Rock and Roll Renegade.
Yeah. And the title song was like a huge hit. Like everybody knew that song.
Yeah, so I don't know why, man. Now I look back, honestly speaking, like cringe at some of those songs, but they have for some reason people connected with them. Man.
Because I think I was around 13 or something when I first saw you live, and it was at Rang Bhavan at one of the independent stores. I'll tell you
Yeah.
the one it was. You all played a set, and then I think different singers started coming in and singing with you all. Do you remember that gig?
Yeah, that was Rock and Roll Party. That was called Rock and Roll Party. That was organized by Farad and Mark, a bass player. Also.
Yeah.
So the both of them organized this thing, and we got
And
this concept that we'll play our set, and then we'll have. I think it was influenced by the Last Waltz, if I'm not mistaken.
right.
The
Yeah.
same thing,
Similar concept.
We,
Yeah.
we play our set, and then we call all these guest artists to come and sing and play with us and stuff. And that was a big hit. The show was really big.
You had a black Ibanez on that gig, I remember.
Yeah, that Black Ibanez, which stayed with me forever, man. That was my guitar.
And
That was the only guitar I had.
what is the rest of your rig at that time? You were using like a
I
processor or
was
something?
yeah, I was using a compressor, a Boss overdrive, and I think I had a Boss chorus and an Ibanez delay. These 4 pedals I used.
Yeah, because I remember
For us,
you played some song with a very chorused, clean sound, and that just sounded like the most prettiest
yeah,
sound I've
it
ever.
was just I can't remember some analog Boss chorus. It was. I don't even remember which one. A CS2 or
Yeah,
something.
and then you played like a solo, I think, over Imagine or something like that, with somebody was
Possibly.
singing, and
Yeah.
that was the first time I was like, oh, that's like a great guitar sound coming out of the PA, because like earlier on you would only hear it like on record,
Yeah,
but
that was Roger Drago's Marshalls. I think you have that same Marshall. If I'm not
I bought
mistaken.
one of those.
The same one. He had that JCM 800.
Wow, it's amazing
Yeah,
that I
the
ended
very
up.
same Marshall.
It's
That I
crazy.
think Marshall has a lot of bands have played. Wishbone Ash must have played. Then Uriah Heep must have played through
He
that.
bought them off Wishbone Ash or the Police. He said he can't remember
Yeah,
which one.
possibly. Yeah, yeah. So that
Crazy.
amp has a lot of history now.
Wow.
And in those days, one guitar was all you had.
Yeah.
And I remember the guys when we used to travel. Earlier we used to travel in trains and take all our drum kit and everything, and amps too we had to take with us. So
Yeah.
I don't know, we used to like smuggle them on the train because you can't take those heavy crates and stuff in the
Yeah.
passenger compartment. You had to check them, and so but we used to take them and like hide them under the seat and stuff. And I remember when we started traveling by air,
Uh-huh.
these guys they didn't want to take their guitars in with the cases, so they
Right.
had all these massive wooden boxes and flight cases. They call them flight cases at that time, built for. And I used to take my Ibanez, the only Ibanez I had in the original not soft case, but it was that hard case.
Yeah.
So I used to check it in without tying the thing, nothing. And it always came out absolutely fine. And these guys used to struggle to like pack their stuff and wrap their guitars in like cloth and all that shit. And So it was really funny, and they used to wonder, man, this fucker does nothing, but this guitar comes out absolutely fine. Nothing will happen to the damn thing. And they used to be like, bite their fingernails, waiting for the thing to come out and see if it's all okay and stuff.
Okay, now
So
as Rock Machine, you all came out with a second album as well. And what was the time gap between one album and the other?
I think it was up 2 years, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. Yeah.
And that
So
first album was already doing pretty well, so you all had like something to.
yeah. The second album was actually done on Magna Sound
Okay.
because by then CBS I think shut down. R.V. Pandit shut it down because he was running massive losses.
Okay.
So and by then Magna Sound. So ex CBS guys used to be running CBS. Those guys from I think what is his name? Shashi Gopal.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
He started Magna Sound. So the second album was on Magna Sound that we did.
Okay.
So that was I think 89. 18, no, sorry, that was 90, 91, 90.
And then you all also had a video from that album for a song called Pretty Child, which was like a huge hit. Was it from that
Yeah,
album?
but that actually was from that album. But we put it, we not recorded, but we released it again
Okay.
on the third album, which was Indus. Then we changed the name to Indus Creed.
Right.
The third album which we recorded in was it? We recorded in LA. That was the album.
Yeah.
That was released by Crescendo, BMG Crescendo.
So at what point did MTV happen? Because I remember your stuff came out on MTV pretty soon after it was. Because I remember it would have been around 93 according
93,
Yeah.
that's right. And
Yeah,
MTV
it
happened
first came out-
93.
Yeah, 93. And then at that time I remember there was a common beam between the Middle East, India and Hong Kong.
Yeah, Southeast Asia.
Before they split.
Correct. Southeast Asia and Middle East and India was a common.
That means your stuff once it started coming on MTV was actually going across to all of
Correct.
Asia.
Yeah.
So people in other countries as well would know like, oh, this is a band from India, whatever. Which is pretty
That's
huge.
right. Yeah.
The reach that those early videos.
And at that point, there were not many Indian bands also. They were looking for, so MTV was looking for content from India because they wanted that huge Indian, market.
Yeah.
So there was us. Then there was, I think, who was it?
This was before they got hip to Bollywood, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
They were still,
us and a couple of other bands.
They were still looking for Indian bands that fit the Western mold in that sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Because
and I think Pretty Child was that video that we gave them, and they put it on heavy rotation, and then it won that MTV Viewers Choice Award.
The funny
that got a lot of mileage.
The funny thing is that particular period of television was a huge influence on everyone from my age group because everyone was watching that.
For us too, because we were actually getting to see bands. The videos before that we never had. Doordarshan was never. Showing anything. I think they used to have one show
once a year.
Once a year, some that on filter or something they used to show. Remember on Sundays, it's some odd time they used to show it in the afternoon or something. And so we never could see any bands perform or playing or any videos. So for us, it was like complete culture of this thing.
Like suddenly the doors were open.
Yeah.
And after the third album came out, that would have been 94? 5? Third album?
93, I think. 93.
93. Okay. Yeah. So there were two big videos. One was a song called Pretty Child, like we mentioned. And there was another one called Sleep, I remember, which had this very black and white kind of stylish. Stylized video.
Yeah, so that third album was basically we had got a manager, a British guy, who liked our sound, but he said if you guys want to break it out of India, then you need to have some Indian element. You have to have some Indian sound because you don't want to sound like them because there are literally millions of bands who play like you, and you're just going to be lost. So that was one thing. So that's why we changed actually the name from Rock Machine to Indus Creed also.
Rebranding.
We tried to change the sound, and that's how actually Pretty Child also came about. Was we wanted to add more of that, Indian sound to it, but it doesn't always work. For some reason, I've at least what I've seen, putting rock and Indian instrument, tablas and sitar, it just doesn't work.
You can't always do that.
It doesn't gel naturally. you have to really, you have to really make it work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it sounds like a cliche thing, it's
On
just being
on that
done to
song,
that.
the part I like the most is when it's going from a like a 6/8, I think, right?
Yeah, it's a
The
6/8. Yeah.
and then it goes into that shuffle rhythm at the
Yeah,
end into a
correct. Yeah,
4/4. I
yeah,
love that transition. That's like one of my
yeah.
favorite transitions on a song.
Yeah, so that whole thing, that bass groove was
Uh-huh.
played by Srikanth. Who's, Srikanth,
Yeah,
no?
yeah, he's
Srikanth.
in the UK right
Sri.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the UK right now. So he came up with that thing, playing that tabla kind of a groove on the bass. So we thought that this is really cool. You're not actually playing a tabla. You're playing a bass, but you're giving her that same tabla rhythm.
Yeah.
So that really worked, and that's we
And
made a video of that.
you did a really cool solo on that song. I remember like seeing it on TV
Oh
for the first time.
yeah,
I was like, wow, that's a nice one.
thank
It
you.
flows like
Thanks.
really well with
Yeah,
the changes.
yeah.
So
Thanks.
that particular album you all recorded in LA, and I'm sure you've got a
Correct.
million stories about those sessions. But any standout moments for you from that experience?
Yeah, it was being in LA was a different experience by itself, because
Which year
you
was
had
that where you went in to
this
record?
was 94, 94. It was. Yeah, it was 94, I think.
And this was
Yeah.
after the whole grunge had taken over
When
the 80s hair metal and everything.
correct. Yeah. So when we went there, Nirvana was actually the biggest act
Yeah.
in the US. And actually, when we were there was the time when Kurt Cobain, you know,
Oh
killed
really?
himself.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
So it happened while we were there. So grunge was really big, and we got to play a couple of gigs, and we did some showcases for some record company guys and stuff, hoping that we had this dream. Look, we are here. It's gonna happen and stuff.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work like that. So and we played some club gigs, we did some showcases and stuff, but nothing really came of it.
Yeah.
And
No,
came back and
somehow I think like at the time you all were like the biggest band around. I don't think another band has ever actually had that reach since. It was kind
uh,
of like you almost rode the crest of the wave, and then little after that, like I guess the internet came out, and then you had like a whole bunch of different bands, and but in terms of like
yeah,
that
yeah.
that
Yeah, it was like
pan
you said,
global
like a
reach.
wave, and then it came down. And I think early 2000s was when it started. The whole scene kind of exploded because of
Yeah,
internet and stuff.
that was
So
that was the
and it
time
was
my
like
band was. We just got a lot of popularity just because of the internet and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
And you had so much access to music and everything. Napster and all that thing happening at that point. You could just get almost anything that you wanted, you could access. Any kind of
yeah,
music you wanted, you could access. And so yeah.
so
Of sorry, you say?
now I was just going to ask. So then, at some point, you all decided to take a break, and I guess Uday and Jayesh moved to the
Yeah,
States.
yeah.
And during that time, you got pretty involved in like production and stuff like that. Commercial work
Yeah,
and
we took a break. Actually, break means actually we just got fed up because we did everything that we thought we possibly could,
yeah, I can
and nothing was
imagine.
happening. And at that point, even MTV and Channel V and all that started shifting focus to
I'll
on
tell you
Bollywood
exactly
and
what
Hindi.
happened. They realized basically how lucrative Bollywood could be if
Yeah,
marketed to
exactly.
back to India.
Yeah, yeah. And that whole music scene changed completely.
Yeah,
It
it
was
just
more
came like
Hindi pop.
a tsunami and obliterated everything else in its
Yeah,
path.
it was all Hindi pop and all that started.
The
So we said, fuck it, and
the
we've done it. And by then Mark had gotten married, Uday was married, and Zubin was married, and they had started families and stuff. So they were like kind of they had other things, other responsibilities. So then Jayesh, so we kind of just fizzled out. The whole thing fizzled out for
Mhm.
us. The whole scene fizzled out. So then Jayesh and Uday went off to New York
Mhm.
to put a band together there, and they had a bit of success. I think they played a lot of gigs and released an album under the name Aam for Shanti. That was
Yeah, I
their band.
remember that. Yeah.
So they were there for about 8 9 years, and then yeah. But then I got into doing my own thing. I did one album with Gary Lawyer. Then I did some production and jingles off and on, and then writing music for TV serials. The most boring stuff I've ever done in my life.
You did
So, but yeah.
you did a very nice instrumental track on that Smoking Guns
Oh
compilation.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, I did that thing. That was good fun also. A lot
What is
of
that song called? I can hum
it
it to
was
you, but
called Fire
Fire
Dance.
Dance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'd got into production, so it was fun for me at that point. I was playing everything, programming drums, playing keyboards, bass, and I was doing everything by myself. So that I had a lot of fun doing it.
Also, it's kind of cool when you can just put down all your ideas,
Exactly.
by
Yeah.
yourself, and then later
And the
on,
whole
maybe, get
yeah,
other
yeah,
people
that
involved.
technology had just kind of, I
Yeah.
had got myself a desktop and you could do it. Was for me, it was like, it was great fun. You could do everything yourself. You don't depend on a band or anyone else.
You've gone through quite a few, changes in technology in your career as a player.
Yeah.
So, like once the first digital, processors and stuff started coming out, did you notice like, oh, this doesn't, sound like my old stuff and stuff, or you just
For
embraced it and
sure.
you,
No, no, definitely. I think the first digital was a Digitech which I had bought. I think
yeah,
your brother bought it off me if I'm not mistaken.
the RP1.
Hit RP1, yeah, yeah. And I just wasn't in, and I bought it when we had gone to LA.
Okay,
I
yeah,
bought it there.
it was all the
And it
rage.
just didn't sound like the damn pedals, man. It was just something was like, it just sounded very kind of synthetic. It had kind of a plastic sheen on every goddamn, every patch. It just didn't work for some reason. But I thought, okay, this is the future, man. Just one thing you take with you and, you just plug into the board or you plug into the amp or whatever. And that's it. But for me, that initial digital thing for me didn't work. I just, of course, since then things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
But for me, I wasn't impressed at all by them.
Okay, so now at some point, I guess in the 2000s, Uday, you and Zubin decided to get the band back up and running, and you all had
Yeah,
Jay on drums and I think Rushad Mistry on bass, and then you all recorded an album
yeah,
which was called, I believe,
evolve,
Evolve. Yeah,
evolve. Yeah,
and there was a
yeah,
really nice few songs. There was one called Fireflies, which became
correct.
quite popular. So
Yeah,
then, how did it feel having that second resurgence, like playing like,
it
N87 and
was
stuff like
it
that?
was even though the band was called Indus Creed, it was a totally new band,
Yeah,
and we were thinking completely differently.
yeah,
Because in the last 10 years, preceding 10 years, we had listened to all so much different music that different from what we grew up listening to. Not only rock and roll, but a lot of different kind of stuff. So everyone had completely evolved, so to speak,
yeah.
you know, different ways.
Did you
So
find
it was a different band and different sound and
did you
yeah.
find fans of the new music who hadn't heard the older records and stuff?
In fact, a lot of the fans, yeah, who hadn't heard went back to listen to our older stuff. A lot of the younger kids, who had no idea what we had done before, they went back and listened to the older stuff, and they came and told us, "Man, that's great stuff too." So it was that was really cool.
Okay, so at the peak of Indus Creed, you all must have been one of the busiest touring bands, and I remember like your show was really, well rehearsed, professional. Your lights, your
Yeah,
sound, everything
yeah,
was in
yeah,
place. So you were actually running it like a proper
yeah,
organization in that sense.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm guessing you've seen a few parts on in the country. Which were some of your favorite venues in India to play?
You're talking about now or back in the day?
Back in the day, I guess.
Back in the day, favorite venues pretty much all of them were the same because the kind of you probably only cities like Calcutta or Bombay you would get good gear to play with,
Right.
but everywhere else it was just whatever local sound man used to come with like two boxes and keep them on the side. That was your PA. In fact, I remember once we had gone to I think it was IIM Ahmedabad or one of these engineering colleges. I can't remember which one. We had the board was put together by the students. They had put together a board, the mixing board. It was like some project for them.
Oh
So
wow.
that was a mixing board, and then one that was the Mark's bass amp and speaker was again put together by the sound man, and the speaker cabinet was a mango crate, and we had put some 6-inch driver there, and whatever note you played, it was just one frequency. You couldn't hear the note. It was just like the whole thing used to shake, and it was just one. I mean, played through gear like that. So yeah. So the favorite places I would say would be where we had great audiences, which was always Calcutta was damn good.
Mhm.
Northeast, all the Northeast places,
Yeah.
beautiful audiences, great audiences. So they were a favorite. Bangalore to a certain extent also had good audiences. So yeah, we have very fond memories of Calcutta, Northeast. Northeast was always great fun.
And what about like venues like Rang Bhavan, which had like huge amounts of history and stuff? I mean, but you played
Yeah,
that so many times.
Rang Bhavan was that, like you said, it's history, man. It
Mm.
was great because playing on the same stage that we seen other bands like Hirai, Vishbona,
Yeah.
Chetrotal, all these bands. So that was like for us, it was a great feeling. And Rang Bhavan always meant Roger Drago.
Yeah,
So we knew that we always had good
yeah.
sound. And yeah.
You knew like the gear would work.
Yeah, it would work. And we knew the audience was always our best friends. They were like, they're always very kind and appreciative. So,
Do you remember where the craziest after party post gig went down?
oh man, there's so many of them. All kinds of. I'll tell you one funny story. One not after party, but I think we were playing in Dubai or someplace or somewhere in the Middle East. Okay, so we finished the gig, and our manager told us, "Man, you guys got to rush back to the hotel." The hotel was like we've been playing in the hotel itself in the lawn.
Uh-huh.
So Jayesh and me, Jayesh, me and Zubin, quickly packed up and we were running, but there was no one following us or anything. So we, for some reason, thought. So we were running away from the audience, and no one was bothered. But and then Zubin, he saw we were running. There was this little hedge, and he thought that was some wall or something that you have to jump through, jump on. So he went and jumped on it right into the edge. So people are standing and looking at us and what's wrong with these guys? Why are they running? There's no one chasing them or something. So there are these funny little incidents in there. But yeah, after show parties, there have been so many, and now I don't even remember because those were different days. There were too much alcohol and other substances consumed. So everyone was pretty wild. But, yeah.
I believe at some point you all toured Russia. I think in the late 80s.
Yeah, that was
How did
We
that
played
come
for
about?
the Festival of India. Again, R.V. Pandit. We were signed on to CBS at that point, and R.V. Pandit got us on that because it was called the Festival of India and Russia, and they had all these Indian, artists and classical musicians and those kind of people. Uh, but R.V. Pandit said, so we have this band also. Why don't you take them? So he got us on that gig along with Gary Lawyer. Gary Lawyer was also there. So that's how it came, and that was a great experience. Yeah. And we went there, and that's where we actually saw how things are professionally done.
Right.
Everything was so well organized. The auditoriums, they were amazing, massive places. All of them had grand pianos and stuff. So, and they treated you like artists and musicians. Like they gave you that respect. So that is great.
Awesome. So I thought just a cool segment would be to just go through a few guitar player names, and you can tell me what
Okay.
thoughts the names bring to your mind.
Yeah.
The first one, let's start with Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix, the first thing that comes to mind is he should tune his guitar. No, but I love his song. Man. He's a pioneer. But that's the first thing. When I heard Jimi Hendrix, the first thing I thought was this guitar's out of tune.
Cool. Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton, soul, feel.
Okay. Jeff Beck.
Jeff Beck, he's a what do you call it? I don't know the describe radical. Man.
Yeah, he's always changing his.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
his-
yeah. He's off center.
Yeah.
You know?
David Gilmour.
David Gilmour, space.
Cool. Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page, I would say frantic,
Michael Schenker.
class.
Gary Moore.
Gary Moore, aggression.
Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy.
Scott Gorham, Brian Robertson. Brian Robertson was raw. Scott Gorham was, I would say, melodic and polished.
Cool. Oli John Roth.
I never got into Uli John Roth really. I've heard very little of his stuff, but he was again very influenced by classical. He was original,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
fusing classical.
It's funny, he was a
rock-
huge classical music fan and a very big Hendrix fan. So,
Okay.
interesting combination.
Yeah.
Richie Blackmore.
Blackmore, insane.
Yngwie Malmsteen.
Amy Ramstein, like, awe, just awe. I was like in awe of him.
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, Groove,
Cool. Chet Atkins.
Chet Atkins. What can I describe? Chet Atkins is he's everything to me, man. He's
The Guru.
uh, guru, yeah. He's like
Tommy Emmanuel.
Tommy Manuel is what I wish I was.
Steve Morse.
Steve Moss is again aggression and melody,
Yeah, melodic aggression.
melodic aggression.
Joe Perry.
Joe Perry, groove, a very groovy player.
And Slash.
Slash is rock and roll, man.
Didn't you get to jam with him once?
Yeah. We jammed and with Slash. It was great. It was great fun, man. I
There
can't
was
remember
a,
the song we played. We played, I think, some Alice Cooper tunes and stuff. It was for the MTV, some MTV gig in Bangalore, where they flew him down, and we came down and we were supposed to play with him. So he played 2, 3 songs, and it
I
was
think
great fun.
I think you told me the way he set up his amp is like he slid his hand across the knobs and just went.
Yeah. It was pretty much everything was done, and he didn't. It was his guitar into his amp into that Marshall. There was nothing in between them. Except that cable. That's it.
And it was loud.
And
Right?
it was loud and amazing. It just sounded like Slash because
Yeah.
he's Slash. Man. So, yeah.
Cool. Any other guitar players you got to jam with that stuck out? Like you have any memories of?
No, I have a very bad memory. I think you were there also of playing with that Swedish guy. What's his
Matthias.
name? Matthias Diklund. Yeah, it was already we were smoking before that, and like idiot, I don't know what got into me. Why I agreed to go and completely made a fool of myself. Yeah,
It was fun though.
so it was fun. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask how big of an effect, how important is the gear to a player's sound?
And that depends on the player, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one answer for everybody. It depends. Because, like, I know it's a cliche, but the sound is definitely you. You're the sound. How you play the guitar. So you can have shitty gear, but the guy who playing that guitar will still sound like him. Still sound like that. So even if you have average gear, we have to find ways to make it sound good. You take an amp, you take a okay amp, and you plug in and take your ears and see. Having said that, yes, having good gear, expensive gear, definitely makes a huge difference. But again, if you have a guy who sounds like shit playing, you give him the most expensive gear, it's gonna sound shit.
It'll just amplify
So,
bad.
yeah, it just exactly. So it all depends on you, and yes, it definitely helps having good gear if you know how to use it.
Yeah, how to
That's
set it
more
up.
important. How to use the gear. So,
Cool. Of all the stuff that you've done, is there anything that sticks out as like you're really proud of that above everything else?
well, stuff that I've done over the years on different albums. One thing I was listening back to this thing I'd done with Gary Roy's album, which I produced and played, and I was listening back to it, and I heard it after many years, and I listened back and I thought, oh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I did a pretty okay job. Some of the solos and stuff, and now I can't think like that. No, I was thinking differently then, and I listen back and I think, okay, that was a nice phase in my life. Whatever came out, it sounded good. But yeah, other stuff, even on the last Indus Creed album, there's some stuff I played which I listen back and think it's not too bad. It's okay. So,
Yeah. I mean, for me, my two favorite bits I would probably say is that the guitar work on Pretty Child, which you wrote, and the solo on Sleep. Those those stick out to me.
Thank you.
How old were you when you wrote Pretty Child, the guitar work on that?
Pretty Child was recorded in 89, 1990. So how old was I? I was 26 years old.
And do you remember what you used on the recording?
Yeah, I remember I used my black Ibanez. You know that Ibanez I have, it had a very weird pickup this thing configuration.
Okay.
You could use all the it had a humbucker and two single coils,
Yeah.
humbucker at the bridge,
Uh,
and you could split that humbucker.
okay.
And also it had push button. You remember the guitar? I don't know if you
Vaguely,
remember
yes. I,
seeing.
I
It
remember.
had those push buttons also, as well as a 5-way selector and
Right.
5 push buttons. If you could use any combination of pickups
Mhm.
on that, so you could use the bridge and the neck together, or and leave the middle pickup out, or you could use all three of them together, and you could split the humbucker into single coil. So I think for that sound, it was all the three pickups together, and it was through Ehsan's that Roland processor, which I keep forgetting the name which he had.
The
So he actually
GP8.
Ehsan helped a lot in the studio with the sound
It
guitar
was a
sounds.
GP8, right?
GP8 was it? Yeah, GP8 I think. Yeah, GP8.
Rack
So
mount
it was through
Roland.
that. Yeah, and it was of course just a clean sound. So
And just
that
recorded
was
it direct, or you went into some
direct,
amps?
direct. That was recorded direct.
Yeah, it's got that very pristine, chorus
Yeah,
kind of
actually,
sound.
that it was that guitar become combination, which I haven't found on any other guitar so far.
It's quite a unique sound as
So
well. It's right.
yeah, it's a very unique sound. It's like almost like a piezo, but it's not like a
Mm.
piezo, but it's a
Yeah.
piezo, whatever. And but I don't know. I haven't found that sound anywhere else.
Is there any piece of gear over the years that you regret not having at the moment?
My Boss overdrive OD2.
OD2?
Yeah, I actually love that. So the Marshall, it was really that OD2 and that CS, that compressor CS1, I thought.
CS2.
CS2, I think it was, yeah. It had just attack and sustain and tone, the three knobs. Yeah, that is the one. That's the one. CS2, yeah. I used to love the sound of that overdrive and the compressor.
If you want, I can
So the
find them
Marshall.
for you. I'll find
Yeah,
you
sure.
if they pop up at a reasonable price, because some of
Yeah,
these
sure, man.
older things,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
keep a lookout.
Sure.
And last question for you is, if you could put together your dream band to record a solo album, who would you get on board?
In Bombay, I mean in India.
Anywhere, any musician anywhere on the world, anytime, living or dead, who would you get?
No, let me put it practically. Because
Okay. I'll keep it to the living. Who
Okay,
from the living musicians would you get?
no, living musician, I'm talking practically, even in India, who I can possibly, it's not too far-fetched too.
Okay.
If I'm among musicians, I know I'd love to get you to play and produce, and Ehsan to play guitar. I mean, there's so many people, man. Fuck, I don't know where to start. It's
Would you want drums and
people-
bass?
drums. I'd definitely get Jay to play Andrew.
And
And Andrew Kanga, sorry, and so many people, man. Bass players, of course, Krishna. I don't know. There's just too many people I can think of. I'll have to really think.
You've come close to putting your dream band, that means, because you've played with these guys before.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying it's for a solo, something that is
Yeah, man.
my concept.
Do it. We'd
So,
love to hear something. Maybe just a
yeah.
couple of songs, maybe, just to start with. And
Yeah,
see how it goes.
You just have to get motivated enough to do that.
Now, for the last bit of the interview, you get to turn the tables and ask me a question.
Yeah. Ask your question. Yeah. So when is your next I've seen your solo album, when is it going to be out? I just
In
saw some
in a month. In a
okay.
month from
And
now.
who are played on that album?
I've got Jay on drums and another friend of mine, Cole. So they've split the drum duties. They've done 5 songs each. And then
Wow.
there are the other 6 songs. There are some, like somewhat like soundtracky kind of stuff. So there's no
Okay.
drums and there's a couple of programmed drums.
Wow, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And all instrumental.
All instrumental. There's a bit of
Lovely.
there's a couple of vocals like textures and some samples and stuff like that, but not really. No one's
Okay.
singing lyrics as such.
Okay.
And I played bass. It was good fun.
Damn good. Lovely. Good.
So yeah, it should be out.
And you recorded Jay from, how did you guys?
I sent him a demo with a programmed drum track, and then he replaced the programmed drum track.
Oh, lovely. Nice.
So it came out pretty organic. And one song actually was a song that he had played on ages back, but it went into the recycle bin, so I managed to rescue it.
Oh. Nice. Look forward to that.
Yeah, man, be cool. Wrap it
Yeah.
out. Thank you so much, Mahesh, for.
Thank you, man. It was
doing
great
this.
fun. It's
It's
great
good to
fun
preserve all
talking
this
about the good old
information.
days.
Yeah, just good to
Yeah,
preserve all this information, for like, kids who may not have been a part of those times, just to know what it
yeah,
was like.
yeah,
That's the main
yeah.
reason I'm doing these things. But yeah,
Cool.
lovely having you. All the best, and keep
Likewise.
keep us
Thank you. All the
updated.
best to you too.
Thank
Sure.
you. See you.
See you, man.